Hello, friends. One week more again with the English pronunciation with the skills of reading this interesting book, Biology of Plants, that I start already. I think almost 2 months ago. Yes, today is the part number 9, and as always, if you're the first time you're listening or watching this video, is always the same idea. I start reading, and once I have some question regarding how to pronounce, then I check my Google Translator. I introduce this, and for example, I can check, for example, cucumber. It's pepino in Spanish.
Cucumber.
Cucumber. So with this, I'm now pretty sure that is the correct pronunciation. So we continue in the chapter number 2 that was dedicated to was about molecular composition of plant cells, and specifically we are in the lipids. So let's continue in this paragraph. Lipids are fats and fat-like substances. They are generally hydrophobic, water-fearing, and thus are insoluble in water. Typically, lipids serve as energy storage molecules, usually in the form of fats or oils, and also for the lipids are important components of all biological membranes. Although some lipid molecules are very large, they are not, strictly speaking, macromolecules because they are not formed by the polymerization of monomers. Fats and oils, now new paragraph. Fats and oils are triglycerides that store energy. Plants, such as the potato, ordinarily store carbohydrates as starch. However, some plants also store food energy as oils, specifically in seeds and fruits. Fruits or fruits? Fruits? Okay, let's take this. Fruits. Because we have to be at least as much sure as possible. Of course, there is always some balance between the speed of reading and at the same time the answering questions. So,
Fruits.
fruits,
Fruits.
fruits,
Fruits. Fruits.
fruits. It's almost like fruits. Okay, I cannot distinguish perfectly if there is small I at the end. Fruits. It seems like this, but okay. Um, However, some plants also store food energy as oils, specifically in seeds and fruits, as in the olives produced by olive trees. Animals which have a limited capacity for storing carbohydrates, which they store as glycogen, readily convert excess sugar to fat. Fats and oils contain a higher proportion of energy-rich carbon-hydrogen bonds than do carbohydrates. Okay, you see? So the animals which have a limited capacity for storing carbohydrates. So animals has limitation to store carbohydrates, convert excess sugar to fat. This is a key point. You remember that's the reason we get fat, because the excess of sugar our body transform into fat. So fats and oils contain a higher proportion of energy-rich carbon-hydrogen bonds that than do carbohydrates. Consequently, fats and oils contain more chemical energy. On average, fats yield about 9.1 kilocalories per gram. You see, fats yield about 9.1 kilocalories per gram. So if you want to reduce 1 gram of your fat, you have to burn out 9.1 kilocalories. So it's a heavy effort. That's the reason we don't lose fat easily. So we need to do a lot of exercise and unbalance our, let's say, incomes and outcomes. Outcomes is the sport, let's say, when we use the energy, and incomes are our food. So be careful with this, because 9.1 kilocalories per gram is quite a lot when oxidized to release energy, compared with 3.8 kilocalories per gram of carbohydrate or 3.1 kilocalorie per gram of protein. That means that, you see, at the same, if you are comparing 1 gram of protein, 1 gram of carbohydrates, on 1 gram of protein, you is equivalent. So you produce with 1 gram 3.1 of protein, 3.8 of carbohydrates, and 9.1 kilograms per gram of fat. So the fat is much more powerful, but our body cannot consume instantly. So only in a moderate, low rate sport we can consume this. So let's say that only with basal play. I don't know how to say exactly, but the carbohydrates, always that while we are doing sports we use it, and protein only in the case our body has no carbohydrates available. So in that case we use our protein in the muscles. That's the reason, if you don't eat properly and you don't have enough carbohydrates and how to say, and you still continue doing sport, then you have a lack of protein in your muscles and your muscles drop. So yes, you did a lot of exercise, but at the same time your muscles get down. Okay, I did not prepare this properly to explain this. Okay. Consequently, fats and oils contain more chemical. Okay, I already wrote this. Fats and oils have similar chemical structures. Each consists of 3 fatty acid molecules bonded to one glycerol molecule. As with the formation of disaccharides, and polysaccharides from their subunits, each of these bonds is formed by the hydration synthesis, which involves the removal of a molecule of water. Fat and oil molecules, also known as, it's really interesting, was exactly what I was explaining little bit in my last video about the soap. How does the soap jabón work? Clean. Why is so effective? And the chemical structure is quite similar to this. Okay. In this case, we are talking about triglycerides. Triglycerides or triglycerides? Let's check this. Triglycerides. It's quite funny, this word.
Triglycerides.
Wow. So it's really different as I was pronouncing it. So Check again.
Triglycerides.
Triglycerides.
Triglycerides. Triglycerides.
Triglycerides. Triglycerides. Triglycerides. Triglycerides. So triglycerides. 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 Triglycerides or triacylglycerols contain no polar or hydrophilic groups. Non-polar molecules tend to cluster together in water, just as droplets of fat tend to coalesce. Coalescence. Let's check this because I don't know even the meaning in Spanish. Coalesce. Juntarse. What? Juntarse.
Coalesce. Coalesce. Coalesce.
Coalesce. Tend to coalesce. For example, on the surface of chicken soup. Non-polar molecules are therefore hydrophobic or insoluble in water. You have undoubtedly heard a lot about saturated and unsaturated fat. A fatty acid that has no double bonds, no dobles enlaces, between carbon atoms is said to be saturated. So if we don't have double bonds, it's saturated. Okay, each carbon atom in the chain has formed covalent bonds to 4 other atoms, and its bonding possibilities are therefore complete. By contrast, a fatty acid that contains carbon atoms joined by double bonds is said to be unsaturated. Okay, so with double bonds is unsaturated. The double bonded carbon atoms have the potential to form additional bonds with other atoms. The physical nature of fat is determined by the length of the carbon chains in the fatty acids and by the extent to which the fatty acids are saturated or unsaturated. The presence of double bonds in unsaturated fat leads to kinks in the hydrocarbon chains, which prevents close packing among molecules. This tends to lower the melting point of the fat. Such as unsaturated fats tend to be liquid, oily, at room temperature. Examples of unsaturated fats, which are primarily found in plants, are safflower oil, peanut oil, and corn oil, all obtained from oil-rich sheets, semillas ricas en aceites. Animal fats and their derivatives, such as butter, mantequilla, and lard. Lard? What does it mean, lard? Let's check this. Lard. Manteca de cerdo. Okay.
Lard.
Lard contain highly saturated fatty acids and are usually solid at room temperature. Okay. Mantequilla y la manteca de cerdo, pues normalmente son sólidas a temperatura ambiente. It's clear. Thus, the terms fat and oil generally refer to the physical state of the triglyceride. Triglyceride. Do you remember? Triglyceride. Fats are triglycerides that are usually solid at room temperature, whereas oils are usually liquid, whereas, mientras que, whereas,
Whereas.
whereas,
Whereas.
Okay, it's clear now. Whereas oils are usually liquid. Now we start a new paragraph. Is phospholipids are modified triglycerides that are components of cellular membranes. Lipids, especially phospholipids, play very important structural roles, particularly in cellular membranes, like triglycerides. Phospholipids are composed of fatty acid molecules attached to a glycerol backbone. In the phospholipids, however, the third carbon of the glycerol molecule is linked not to a fatty acid but to a phosphate group to which another polar group is usually attached. Phosphate groups are negatively charged. As a result, the phosphate end of the molecule is hydrophilic and therefore soluble in water, whereas the fatty acid end is hydrophobic and insoluble. If phospholipids are added to water, added, no? It's always these small words, but very frequent. Agregadas, added,
Added.
added, no, added. If phospholipids are added to water, they tend to form a film along its surface with their hydrophilic heads under the water and their hydrophobic tails, colas, protruding above the surface. If phospholipids are surrounded by water, as in the watery interior of the cell, they tend to align themselves in a double layer, a phospholipid bilayer, dos capas, with their phosphate heads directed outward, and their fatty acid tails oriented toward one another. As we discussed further in Chapter 4, such configurations are important not only to the structure of cellular membranes but also to their functions. Now, we start another paragraph. Catin, suberin, and waxes are lipids that form barriers to water loss. Catin and suberin are unique lipids that are important structural components of many plant cell walls. The major function of these lipids is to form a matrix in which waxes, long-chain lipid compounds, are embedded. The waxes, in combination with catin and suberin, form barrier layers that help prevent the loss of water and other molecules from plant surfaces. A protective cuticle, which is characteristic of plant surfaces exposed to air, covers the outer walls of epidermal cells, the outermost cells of leaves and stems. So covers the outer las paredes más externas, outer walls of epidermal cells, de las células epidérmicas, que son las células más exteriores, of leaves and stems, de las hojas y los stems, que eran los stems. Los tallos. ¿Y cómo se pronuncia de paso? ¿Stems o stems?
Stems.
Okay, stems. Yeah. Okay. So composed of wax cera, wax imbibed in cutting, es como cutting, cuticular, cutting, cortar.
Putin.
Cutin,
Putin.
cutin. Embedded in cutin, cuticular wax, cutin en cutina, cuticular wax, cutin, cuticular. The cuticle is frequently covered by a layer por una capa of epicutilar oof, we have to check this again. Epicuticular. Epicuticular. Yes, something like this. Epicuticular. Let's check.
Epicuticular.
Ooh, almost, but not completely well. Because epi at the beginning is the stress. Epicuticular. Oof. Epicuticular wax.
Epicuticular. Epicuticular.
Epicuticular. Epicuticular wax. When you polish a freshly picked apple on your sleeve, you are polishing this layer of epicuticular wax. Eso, que cuando frotas una manzana, una piel de manzana en tu manga, en la ropa, estás, digamos, puliendo esa capa epicuticular de cera. Sovereign is a major component of the walls of cork cells, the cells that form the outermost layer of bark in woody stems and roots. La sovereign es una de las partes de los componentes más importantes que recubren las raíces y los tallos. Pero, ¿qué significa sovereign exactamente? Sovereign, pues no tengo muy buena aquí la traducción. Sovereign.
Sovereign.
Okay. At least we discover that sovereign is with A at the beginning and not U. So sovereign is a major, but the meaning is like the same. No translation. It's a major component. Okay. So okay, as seen with the electron microscope, sovereign containing, como podemos ver en un microscopio electrónico, el libro está muy bien, os lo recomiendo porque tiene unas fotos espectaculares. The photos in this of this book are amazing, are astonishing, are cool, because indeed you can are high detailed and okay, of course I cannot show this because of questions of let's say protection of these rights or subverized. So sorry. So the word was as seen with the electron microscope, sovereign containing or subverized cell walls have a lamellar, layered appearance with alternating light and dark bands. Waxes are the most water repellent of the lipids. Okay, it's clear. Carnauba wax used for car and floor polishes para pulir o para limpiar. Pulir, ¿no? Pulimentos.
Polishes.
Polishes. Okay. So the Carnauba wax, fijaros, the Carnauba wax is used for car and floor polishes. Is harvested from the leaves of the Carnauba wax palm, Copernicea cerifera, from Brazil. As a curiosity. Now, new paragraph is steroids stabilized cellular membranes and also function as hormones. Steroids can be easily distinguished from the other classes of lipids by the presence of 4 interconnected hydrocarbon rings. In living organisms, hydrocarbon chains of various lengths, as well as hydroxyl and or carbonyl groups, may be attached to this skeleton, making possible a large variety of structural and other molecules. When a hydroxyl group is attached at the carbon-3 position, the steroid is called a sterol. Cytosterol is the cytosterol is the most abundant sterol found in green algae and plants, and ergosterol occurs frequently in fungi. Cholesterol, so common in animal cells, yes, is present in only trace amounts in plants. So plants has no cholesterol at all. Oh, they are lucky. In all organisms except prokaryotes, sterols are important components of membranes, where they stabilize the phospholipid trails. Steroids may also function as hormones. For example, the estrol antheridiol serves as a sex attractant in the water mold, Alkia bisexualis, and a group of steroid derivatives called racins promote the growth of certain stems. There is also evidence that some plants produce estrogen, estrogen. Oh my God.
Estrogen.
Unbelievable. Always is like a surprise. Estrogen. Okay. So there is also evidence that some plants produce estrogen, one of the mammalian sex hormones, but its role in the plant is unknown. Now we are in the last part, in the last, let's say, paragraph dedicated to, okay, no, still for next week we have the nucleic acids. But now we are going to just start the proteins, okay? So proteins are among the most abundant organic molecules. In the majority of living organisms, proteins make up 50% of or more of the dry weight. Only plants with their high cellulose content are less than half protein in their dry weight. Proteins perform an incredible diversity of functions in living organisms. In their structure, however, proteins all follow the same simple blueprint. Blue, blueprint. They are all polymers and nitrogen containing molecules known as amino acids, arranged in a linear sequence. 20 different kinds of amino acids are used by living organisms to form proteins. See, okay. Protein molecules, see vegetarians, amino acids, and nitrogen below. Okay, so we are going to end this video with this, let's say, text. Vegetarians, amino acids, and nitrogen. Like fats, amino acids are formed within living cells using sugars as starting materials, whereas fats contain only carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, all available in the sugar and water of the cell. Amino acids also contain nitrogen. Most of the Earth's supply of nitrogen exists in the form of gas in the atmosphere. Only a few organisms, all of which are microorganisms, are able to incorporate nitrogen from the air into compounds, ammonia, nitrates, and nitrates that can be used by living systems. Only a few microorganisms can do that, picking up nitrogen from the air and introducing this in the plant, and then from the plant to the animals. Hence, only a small proportion of the Earth's nitrogen supply is available to the living world. Plants incorporate the nitrogen from ammonia, nitrates, and nitrates into carbon hydrogen compounds to form amino acids. Animals are able to synthesize some of their own amino acids using ammonia derivadas. Always some question with this, quite similar to Spanish. But derived. Okay. So using ammonia derived from their diet as a nitrogen source. The amino acids they cannot synthesize, they so-called essential amino acids must be obtained in the diet either from plants or from the meat of other animals that have eaten plants. Judy? For adult human beings, the essential amino acids are lysine, tryptophan, threonine, methionine, histidine, phenylalanine, leucine, valine, and isoleucine, more or less. I don't try even to pronounce 100% because it's once in my life using these words. To take full advantage of the protein building capabilities of these amino acids, it is important to have a diet that supplies them in the right ratio. For many years, agricultural scientists concerned with the world's hungry people concentrated on developing plants with a high caloric yield. Recognition of the role of plants as a major source of amino acids for human populations, however, has led to an emphasis on the development of high protein strains of food plants. Of particular importance has been the development of plants such as high lysine maíz con alto contenido en lisina, which increased levels of one or more of the essential amino acids. People who eat meat usually get enough protein and the correct balance of amino acids. People who are vegetarians, whether for philosophical, aesthetic, or economic reasons, have to be careful that they eat enough protein and, in particular, all of the essential amino acids. Adequate protein is raramente a problem for vegetarians. Adequate protein is rarely rare Rare? Rarely? Rare? This word, the problem is that it's quite similar to other. Rare, real, rear de atrás, rear, rare, de raro.
Rarely. Rarely.
Rarely. Okay. So adequate protein is rarely a problem for vegetarians who eat milk, eggs, and other dairy products. These foods contain relatively high amounts of protein with a good balance of essential amino acids. So, if you are vegetarian, but at the same time you are eating milk, eggs, and other, okay, you don't have such a problem. But vegans who don't eat food from any animal source may need to pay extra attention to obtaining enough protein from plants alone. High protein plant foods include beans, nuts, and whole grains. Consuming a varied diet with adequate calories is usually sufficient to ensure adequate protein consumption. Los veganos should also be sure to obtain enough calcium. Dark green vegetables are a good source. ¿Vale? Los vegetales, las plantas que tienen color verde oscuro. Iron, con las judías, beans, seeds, semillas, and dried fruits, frutos secos. And especially vitamin B12, vitamina B12 from nutritional yeast or vitamin supplements. Esa tiene que ser suplementada porque esa normalmente está en la carne un poco cruda, por ejemplo, jamón serrano. One good approach to obtaining the right balance of amino acids from plant sources is to combine certain foods. Beans, for instance, are likely to be deficient in tryptophan. And in the sulfur-containing amino acids cysteine and methionine. But they are a good to excellent source of isoleucine and lysine. Rice is deficient in isoleucine and lysine. It's so okay. At least I'm going to check one. Lysine. Lysina, but how is this?
Lysine.
Lysine and isoleucina. Isoleucine. Okay, it's not so difficult, but it's deficient in isoleucine and lysine. Pues así. What's that?
Lysine.
Yes. So isoleucine and lysine. No, lysine. Isoleucine and lysine. But provides an adequate amount of the other essential amino acids. Thus, rice and beans in combination. Rice and beans. Judías verdes, judías blancas, pintas negras, que también hay, combinadas con arroz. Rice and beans in combination make just about as perfect a protein menu as eggs or steak. Si las combinamos, conseguimos un cóctel proteínico tan bueno como el que puede ser un stick, o huevos. Menu, just about as perfect a protein menu as eggs or steak, as some vegetarians have known for quite a long time. Good point. And in order to finish the page, please, little bit more. Protein molecules are large and complex, often containing several hundred or more amino acid monomers. Thus, the possible number of different amino acid sequences, and therefore the possible variety of protein molecules, is enormous, about as enormous as the number of different sentences that can be written with our own 26-letter alphabet. Organisms, however, synthesize only a very small fraction of the proteins that are theoretically possible. A single cell of the bacterium Escherichia coli, for example, contains 600 to 800 different kinds of proteins at any one time, and a plant or animal cell has several times that number. A complete organism has at least several thousand different kinds of proteins, each with a special function, and each, by its unique chemical nature, specifically fit for that function. In plants, the largest concentration of proteins is found in certain seeds. For example, the seeds of cereals and legumes, in which as much as 40% of the dry weight may be protein. These specialized proteins function as storage forms of amino acids to be used by the embryo when it resumes growth upon germination of the seed. So the seed contains a lot of proteins for the future plant. So it's quite intelligent. It's normal that the seeds had a lot of, let's say, energy inside, and a lot of complexity, and a lot of high quality proteins inside. Okay, so just to go to the next page. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Each specific protein is made up of a precise. Well, precise sounds more English, but precise, yes. Each specific protein is made up of a precise arrangement of amino acids. All amino acids have the same basic structure, consisting of an amino group, NH2, a carboxyl group, COOH, and a hydrogen atom, all bonded to a central carbon atom. The differences arise from the fact that every amino acid has an R group, an atom or a group of atoms also bonded to the central carbon. It is the R group. R can be thought as the rest of the molecule. Yes, it's very common in organic chemistry to see this capital letter R, and with this R means the rest of the molecule that normally is quite long. That determines the identity of each amino acid. A large variety of amino acids is theoretically possible, but only 20 different kinds are used to build proteins. Only 20, not infinity. No, it's not. It's only 20. Are only 20. With 20, we build proteins, and it is always the same 20, whether in a bacterial cell, a plant cell, or a cell in your body, in your own body. Okay, the amino acids are grouped according to their polarity and electric charge, which determine not only the properties of the individual amino acids, but also, more importantly, the properties of the protein formed from them. Okay. The pictures are quite amazing because we have all the amino acids. Okay, we have the 20, in fact. Okay, and at the same time, okay. In yet another example of the hydration synthesis, the amino group of the one amino acid links to the carboxyl group of the adjacent amino acid by the removal of a molecule of water. Again, this is an energy requirement process, requiring process, energy requiring process, que requiere mucha energía. Es un proceso exigente que requiere energía. The covalent bond form is known as a peptide bond. And the molecule that results from the linking of many amino acids is known as a polypeptide. Proteins are large polypeptides, and in some cases, they consist of several polypeptides. These macromolecules have molecular weights ranging from 10,000 to more than 1 million. In comparison, water has a molecular weight of 18, and glucose has a molecular weight of 180. You see? So these micromolecules has 1 million the molecular weight. If you compare with glucose that has 180, or water that has 18, 1/8. Incredible. Such a complex molecules. And okay, I think that we finish here, and in the next week we will continue with the proteins, just finishing, and we will start with the nucleic acids. So friends, I hope that this short class is not short class, is this reading is serves as a motivation for you, because that's the idea with this. Also, at the same time, of course, I'm reading this marvelous book because it's one of my priorities in order to explain you in the next future surely how really plants work in our world, because the future of technology to go abroad, to go to another let's say planets, to get that places human and life supporting for us. The only possibility is, first, the plants has to change the atmosphere, the current atmosphere, in a new atmosphere that is compatible with life. So we need that conditions before we can start thinking on living freely also in such planets. If we don't turn this atmosphere in something similar to Earth's atmosphere, it's absolutely impossible to go there. Forget about this, because then that means that we have to live in a bottle. We have to live in a, let's say, closed place, and it's okay. This is, let's say, one previous step. But for living, the human can live in there, we need to change the atmosphere, and this is only possible with plants. So I invite you to know more about this. Okay, well known, because it's not something that was not discovered. It's something that there are plenty books talking about this. So you just have to focus on this information. And of course, I invite you to know more and dedicate your, okay, if you are in this moment thinking what to study in the future because you are a student, I think that is a good point for you. It's a good choice if you decide finally to go more deep in detail, talking about biology, learning about biology of plants. Okay, friends, see you next week. Every Saturday, the idea is continue this program every Saturday. And okay, see you next week. And be careful with the new premiere that I'm going to show you in the channel, this channel, Engineering, Estrategias Diarias Ingeniería, Daily Strategies for Engineering. And that's all. See you, friends, and goodbye. Have a nice Sunday. Bye-bye.